rate is that it would be immoral to give birth to children, right? Is that the proposition
Mhm.
you would be arguing for?
Yeah, I can give a brief introduction to the argument, like
Okay,
so that
sure.
everyone can. So basically, antinatalism philosophy is that since children or the unborn children cannot give consent to giving to being born, it is unethical to impose life or this existence on them, because by doing so we are subjecting them to a potential for extreme suffering, like chronic illnesses, disabilities, mental illnesses, and all that things that exist currently in our existence. So by giving birth we are essentially gambling with the welfare of someone else without their consent. You can say that it's like playing a Frankenstein experiment in which we cannot control the outcome and someone else has to pay the price. Essentially, we are playing a god's role, a godlike control. We don't have the godlike control over the outcomes. So that is basically what antinatalism is.
Mm-hmm.
Antinatalists are advocating that we shouldn't impose existence onto a sentient life.
Yeah. So yeah. So thing is, um, when one says it is immoral to have to or should or you just give birth to children, right? Um,
Hmm.
it's sort of like saying it would be bad to do it. So I'm just wondering, like, and you can make this case from many angles. Like, there are some people who make this case from like a deontic sort of idea, like where there is some kind of rule that we are breaking by bringing
Hmm.
children into existence. That would be a
Yeah.
deontological case. The other case
Okay.
would be sort of like a utilitarian case, or like more like a negative utilitarian case, where it's just that um, there is just like life is full of suffering or whatever. Uh, so I'm curious whether you are making a like a case from a negative utilitarian or some other kind of utilitarian stance, or are you making some kind of deontological case?
I think my stance is from a deontological case, because no matter no matter what, procreating will always be morally wrong, because uh, we cannot take the consent of the person who we are subjecting them to so much of suffering.
Hmm.
So no matter what the outcome may be, uh, procreation would always be wrong.
Okay. Now, that sort of case would appeal to probably a deontologist who also has the same rule as you are positing. But for someone who does not have the same rule, you would have to make the case that, like, a categorical consent violation is like, basically you need to make the case that this is, well, I let me take a step back. Let's say there are different kinds of consent violations that are possible, right? So you could violate someone's consent in many ways, and there are some kinds of consent violations which we don't care about, which we don't think are immoral, and there are some kinds of consent violations which we think are immoral. Now, the case that the antinatalist who is coming from a deontic stance is going to have to make is that,
Hmm.
um, yeah, firstly, why would we even have such a rule? Like, why would I take a rule like that? Like, one could actually take the view that there and giving birth does not belong in the category of consent violations that are bad. Like, even if I
Okay.
grant it, like for instance, like I'm not even convinced that it would be a consent violation, because I don't even I'm not even sure if non-existent being, like, it's not a coherent concept to me to think that non-existent beings can give consent. So that's not even a coherent concept to me. But even if I grant that and say it is a consent violation, the case that needs to be made is that it is belonging to the category of consent violations that we think are bad.
Yeah, because in certain situation when consent cannot be taken,
Mm-hmm.
or the person whom we are imposing cannot give the consent, the the ideal step should be not to go with that action, isn't it?
No, not
It's
necessarily.
not that, because of course, because if we cannot take that consent,
Mm-hmm.
and we should not we should not do that action in the first
Are
place.
you making this like a categorical thing? Like for any action, if you can't take consent, don't do it?
No, if the harm or the risk that we are imposing by doing that action prevents a greater harm, then I think it is that's one exception to that problem. But
Yeah.
if by doing that we are not preventing a greater harm, or we are not satisfying a need that was not created in the first place, so I think that is an imposition and a risk. So we ought not to do that action when consent cannot be taken.
Wait, 1 second. So, are you
So
saying that in the birth case, it's not that you are?
yeah,
I mean, this kind of feels like it's collapsing back into some kind of utility thing because you're talking about
no, no,
harms, so you're
yeah,
talking about
yeah.
suffering. So it's kind of collapsing into some kind of utility thing. I don't know.
What I'm trying to say is that by giving birth, we are imposing suffering, inevitable suffering. The person who is coming into existence will suffer
Mm-hmm.
inevitably. That Do we agree on that? Some
Sure.
kind of harm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, we can impose harm on someone without their consent only if that harm prevents a greater harm. Like
That's not what I signed off on.
we can force a child to take a vaccination without his consent so that we can prevent a greater harm. But
Mm-hmm.
by procreating, what greater harm are we preventing for the child?
I mean, but I don't even sign off on the premise that you can only do it if there is a greater harm.
Then why would we do that? Like a woman is unconscious, cannot give consent,
Mm-hmm.
and someone comes and tells that I assume that the woman would feel good if I rape her, but someone says that you cannot take the consent, but he says that it is for a greater good or for my pleasure,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
so
but
it would
that's
be
just
immoral.
not analogous because in one
Why not?
case it would be a rights violation. So that's just kind of begging the question because I'm contesting it even is a rights violation.
No, no, the we started in the question that when consent cannot be taken,
Mm-hmm.
the ideal action should be not to take that action. And I
Yeah.
said that there can only be one exception to that, is that when we are preventing a greater harm. Only in that case, the consent is not of that importance
No,
because we
I
are
don't think
preventing a
even
greater
if
harm.
I don't think even if like you're preventing some kind of greater harm,
Yeah.
I don't think that's the only situation where it would be justified.
What 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 another case can you come up with?
Yeah, something. Let me just reiterate. So you're saying that there is no situation other than preventing some greater harm where uh, imposing harm would be justified, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I can just give you an example where, for
I mean,
instance,
in order to make that action moral thing,
yeah, yeah,
we
I
need
yeah,
to follow this.
yeah, I follow that. So let's say I just pinch someone. That's going to cause suffering. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, of course,
So
to a
that
certain degree, yes.
yeah. So if I pinch someone really hard, it's going to cause some suffering, some harm. You agree with that?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if I stipulate that if I pinch this person will
Mm.
for sure they will feel like uh, extremely uh, pleasurable, something like that.
So in a hypothetical situation, if you pinch someone
Mm-hmm.
without their consent,
Yeah,
they're gonna feel a greater pleasure.
they're going to they will experience some pain, but they will
Yeah.
just experience something like infinite bliss or whatever. Do you think that
Mhm.
would be justified?
Yeah, of course, it will be justified
Yeah, so you
because
aren't preventing
you,
any harm, right? Like, there is no reduction in to net harm in one world and the other world. There is only an
mm,
increase in pleasure.
yeah, yeah,
So,
it will be permissible if that person you are pinching is already into existence.
yeah.
The person is in need of that infinite bliss, but we are talking about a
Oh, let's
non-existent
say this
person.
person is not in the need. Like, they have no such desire, but I give it to them anyway.
Okay, so the person is like in coma, you say. I mean,
No,
doesn't need. He has.
doesn't need to be in a coma. They could be completely
Okay, okay.
conscious.
So a person we are pinching doesn't need that infinite bliss.
Yeah, they don't
Is
have
not.
any such desire.
Yeah. So then it would not be a moral thing to do.
Oh, it wouldn't be a moral thing if a person
No.
doesn't want
It
like they don't
no.
have let's say they are agnostic about whether they want infinite pleasure or not, but I give them infinite pleasure anyway.
Yeah, for the person who is already existent.
Yeah, a person is already existing, right?
Yeah.
And this person is agnostic about whether they want infinite pleasure or not. Like, they just don't have any attitude towards it.
This is a very hypothetical question because
Oh,
it can be both
one sec.
things.
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
person
yeah.
the
Let's.
person can enjoy it, and other person cannot enjoy it.
But
Right.
I'm well. I mean, I'm talking about pleasure, right? We are giving them the pleasure, so it would be enjoyable. But they don't
Enjoyable, but
have
nobody needs it. You are not
needs it.
fulfilling a,
No,
you are not
okay, what do you
satisfying a
mean by a
need in the
need?
first. A need is a deprivation of, let's say, deprivation from suffering.
Need is a deprivation of suffering.
Sorry, pleasure is a deprivation from suffering.
Pleasure is a deprivation from suffering. The what is suffering?
Suffering is, how do we define suffering? Suffering means an obnoxious feeling, an unpleasant feeling because of our central nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
That is suffering, yeah.
So, like
Mental, physical
a
suffering.
deprivation of an obnoxious feeling is pleasure.
Deprivation of, yeah.
I don't even like. I'm not sure if anyone takes that definition of pleasure.
I mean removing of unpleasant feelings and suffering is what we call happiness and pleasures.
Not really. I have a different concept of pleasure,
Yeah,
but yeah.
define it,
Anyway,
please.
we can get into that. But the
Yeah.
question is, like, let's say, like, if there is a person, right, and this
Hmm.
person has no idea what infinite pleasure is, so they have
Yeah.
no idea whether they want, like, they just don't
There is no
know.
need. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just go and pinch them, which imparts a little bit of suffering, but then is going to give them infinite bliss. And you would
But
deem that as an impermissible action, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, then I think we just have fundamentally different values. Like, I
Because the person you are pinching was in a neutral state,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
you gave that person suffering without its consent.
I gave him suffering, a little bit of suffering, but I also gave them infinite pleasure.
No, it would be immoral.
Okay, yeah, then we just have different, extremely different values. Like, I don't think, yeah, I don't think anyone else would sign off on it being like impermissible to give someone infinite pleasure. In
Okay, let's say I break somebody's arm,
Mm-hmm.
okay, without their consent.
Yeah,
But they don't know that I'm gonna give them a kilo of gold. Would that be morally okay? Because that person was not in the need of, say for example, there is a village,
mm-hmm.
okay, so nobody needed that piece of gold, that kg of gold,
Mm-hmm.
but I go there because I go with a good intention of giving them wealth. I
Mm-hmm.
go there and break people's arm in order to give them a kilo of gold. They were not in the need of that kilo of gold,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to impose suffering without their consent.
Yeah, but now then you're just scaling up the amount of suffering, right? So that's going to shift my attitude.
No matter what the suffering is, you are, this is a hypothetical situation, like you're telling that if we bring someone into existence and there is just a pinprick, would that be immoral? That kind of situation you are telling me.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So because these are a hypothetical situation, we can just go on like this, but the actual scenarios in the real life example, because as long as
No,
people are
but
giving
the
birth,
the
there is
point
certain
is,
percent
the point is that
you.
in one case, like the
Hmm.
scales are tipped. Like, so in one case, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
giving
it can
him.
be.
Yeah, in one case,
It
I'm just
can be.
one. Hold on,
Yeah, I
hold
get
on.
your point. Yeah. Okay, please
Yeah,
go
in
on.
one case, I'm just giving him like a pinch, and in return, I'm
Mhm.
giving this person like infinite bliss. And in one
Mhm.
case, in the other case, you're just scaling down the amount of pleasure that this person will
Yeah.
experience by giving them 1 kg
Yeah.
of gold, and also
Mhm.
scaling up the amount of suffering. So that is what is shifting my
Yeah.
this thing. Now you need to make the case that this is
Yeah.
analogous to what is happening in the birth case.
Yeah. So the birth case, what you're trying to say is that this value equation or this scale,
Mm-hmm.
you're saying that if it is balanced in the opposite way, what I'm saying that life contains more suffering than pleasure, you are
Mm-hmm.
tipping the scale in the opposite direction and telling that there is minuscule amount of pleasure and sorry, minuscule amount of suffering and there is more amount of pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So you are asking that would that be a immoral thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying that it is possible that some of our lives
Mm-hmm.
may be such that there are no suffering. Right? He is uh, like this game of lottery. He has won all the games. It's a genetic lottery, the financial. There is minuscule amount of suffering in his life.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that still procreation would be immoral because as long as people are giving birth, a certain percentage of those sentient beings that are being born would end up suffering, isn't it? Not 100% of the birds would statistically have that kind of life.
Sure.
So when people, so then people, so when people are deciding to have children, they are kind of prioritizing the existence of happy people at the expense of those who will suffer, isn't it?
No, I don't see how that follows.
Like you are saying that my child would may have that kind of life where there would be minuscule amount of suffering,
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not
but
saying that. I'm not making any claim like that. So, but yeah, go ahead.
but the analogy what you gave, that was the thing, right? Because you were saying that there can be a life where there could be so less suffering that it would be a good thing to bring them into existence.
No, I'm so the reason I gave you that analogy was to just show you that there is at least one situation where even though
Yeah.
there is no consent and
Hmm.
there is no reduction of suffering, such an action
Yeah.
would be permissible. So,
Yeah.
but then we just have different values. You say it's not permissible. I'm saying it's like it's completely. In fact, if pinching someone is going to give them infinite bliss,
Hmm.
I would probably consider it obligatory to do, not just permissible. It would be obligatory. Like it would be a bad
I,
thing if I didn't do it, if I didn't violate their consent.
it wouldn't be a bad thing. There is no moral obligation to create happiness, but there is a moral obligation to refrain from causing someone the unnecessary
By
suffering.
moral obligation, what do you mean?
Means you are saying that you are obligated to create that kind of life, isn't it? To create more happiness.
No, what I'm saying is if there was a case where I could just pinch someone
Yeah.
and give them infinite bliss, I
Yeah.
would actually consider that to be an obligatory action.
But I'm saying that you would not be obligated to create more happiness.
Yeah, and I'm
I'm
asking you
saying
what
that
you
you
mean
are
by obligation.
obligated.
Because it seems we are talking about different things when we are talking about obligations.
What do you mean obligated means you are morally, uh, you are more like I'm a vegan. You are a vegan. You are morally obligated not to create more suffering just to survive. When you can practically see that you can survive without harming a sentient life. In that way, you are morally obligated because you are consciously higher than other animals. In that way, I'm saying that we are morally obligated to reduce suffering than to we are morally create obligated to create
Oh
happiness.
wait, yeah. I mean, I could sign off on that. You could say we
Yeah,
have more of an obligation to prevent suffering,
correct.
and less
Yeah.
of but that doesn't mean we don't have an obligation to generate infinite bliss or whatever.
No, because
But
that
that's the
was I'm
claim you
saying
made.
that when we are,
You said there is no obligation to create pleasure,
yeah, because when you are saying
but
that,
that's contradicting what
uh,
you're saying right now.
no, no, let me complete. Like you are saying that we first of all we have an obligation to reduce suffering, isn't it? Or do we have an obligation to create more happiness?
Oh, I don't take a view on it. Depends on what suffering and the degree of suffering, etc. Like it would depend on that whether I take it to be like whether there is an
No, no,
obligation
no.
to reduce it.
When you and I are ethically vegans, we cannot say that, because someone can say that I can create more happiness in a more conscious people like humans. I can feed them such delicacies with the dead bodies of animals and their secretion that there would be more happiness. And someone can say that I have a moral obligation to create more happiness. But we would say that
Oh
no,
no no no!
we
I don't take the view that any amount of pleasure generation is obligatory. Like there is going to be some threshold of pleasure generation beyond
no, but
which
you have to
there
take
is
one
a
side, isn't it?
wait what.
Either you have to be obligated to create more happiness, or you have to obligated to reduce suffering.
No, you
Something you have to choose,
no. We don't have to. That's
because
a
when
false
you
dichotomy. You could
because
have a view that I'm only obligated to increase happiness if happiness is beyond this threshold of amount of happiness.
uh, but how will you judge that without creating the person?
What do you mean? But that's tangential to the principal question.
Look, because you are saying that there can be a life, like there can be 100, you created 100 people, okay, and
Mm-hmm.
out of the 100 people there may be a certain life that could be purely blissful, okay, but I'm
I'm not
saying
saying
that
anything
certain,
that way.
at the first of during our conversation, first of all you told that there can be a life that can have pure bliss, isn't it?
No, I mean, I agree with that, but that's not what I said.
Then what was the purpose of the analogy in the first
Yeah,
place?
the purpose of the analogy was to show that there
Yeah.
exists one case where consent violation and
Hmm.
non reduction of suffering would still be
Hmm.
permissible. That was the only purpose of giving you the analogy.
So it is okay to procreate.
No, that's not
The
what I.
conclusion.
I mean, I
What's the
didn't conclude
conclusion of the
that.
analogy?
That's just. So I'm not concluding anything. All I'm saying. Well, you could say I'm concluding that it's not the case that consent violation and non reduction of suffering is the only situation where it would be. Consent violation along with some reduction of suffering is the only case where it will be permissible. I'm negating that. I'm saying it's not the case that consent violation is justified if and only if there is some reduction of suffering. I'm saying consent violation can be justified even if there is no reduction of suffering, but there is an increase in pleasure and some a non-trivial amount of pleasure, maybe beyond some threshold.
Yeah, but the person you are trying to give infinite bliss, that person is not in the need of that bliss.
Yeah, that wouldn't matter to me. Like even if that was the case, giving someone infinite bliss would still be permissible on my view. Even if they don't need it, whatever that means.
Can you name one bliss that you are planning to give that person?
What
Like
is
infinite amount of orgasms, or infinite amount of, let's say, infinite amount of sensory pleasure. What kind of bliss are you planning to give?
I mean, I don't know why that. Like, what are you going to do with that? Like,
I was trying to
I
prove
could
that
randomly
you
pick
cannot.
any of them. I could randomly pick any of
Yeah,
them. It would still be
yeah.
true. Like,
Pick one. Yeah, pick one.
yeah, but like, even if
What
I do, like, what is that trying to achieve? Like, what is it
I'm trying to
achieving?
achieve that you cannot give pleasure without first of all imposing suffering on that person. Means someone in your house has to be, uh, for him to allow him to enjoy the cool breeze of the air conditioner. First of all, you have to make him suffer in the heat. You have to make him understand what heat feels like, isn't it? So how
No.
will you provide bliss to
Wait,
someone
are you
without first
saying
of all imposing
are you
suffering?
saying it's impossible to give someone pleasure without giving them suffering?
Yeah, without depriving someone
Okay,
of the
on so
neutral state.
when you say it's impossible,
Yeah.
what modality are you referring to? Like,
First of
are
all,
you
you have
saying
to
it's logic?
someone.
One sec. So when you're saying it's impossible, there are different ways in which something can be impossible. Like something can be logically impossible, which means it contradicts some law of logic or rules of inference or something, some kind of tautology like that, or it means something like it is physically impossible, which means that there is some law of physics that's being violated in virtue of affirming that proposition. So that's what I take it. So when you say it's impossible to give someone pleasure without giving them suffering, are you
Hmm.
saying it's logically impossible or are you saying it's physically impossible?
Logically, I think what I'm trying to say, I don't know it's logically, physically, I haven't thought about that. What I'm saying is that someone is in neutral state. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want to give him pleasure, first of all, you have to deprive that neutral state being. Then only you
Yeah,
can
what's
give
the
him
argument for that?
pleasure by, yeah.
What's the argument that one would have to, but like hold on one sec, but you're saying that it's impossible, right? But I need to understand
Yeah.
what you mean by that. Like when you say it's impossible, like I
Hmm.
understand impossibility claims to be some kind of contradiction under a given modality. So
I don't know. You are making it too complicated. Just talk in a sense in a common people how they talk.
okay, so when you say
Like
impossible, what do you mean? Let me just ask
impossible.
you.
Let me give you an example. Like you cannot give the Martian a pleasurable experience without first of all,
that's
subjecting them to a deprivation.
that's just
First, you have to
begging the
deprive
question.
them. What?
That's just begging the
From a
question. That is
neutral state.
precisely the claim that is under dispute.
How will you give someone infinite bliss without first of all giving them suffering or depriving them from the neutral
Yeah,
state? How will
that's
you give them bliss?
that's what I'm contesting. So it's your claim. You don't have to ask me questions for you to substantiate your claim. So when you say impossible,
What?
what do you mean? I don't know what you mean when you say it's impossible.
How do I define the word impossible?
Yeah, I gave
You are,
you my
it's a
understanding.
normal context how people use the word impossible.
But we are not talking about a normal context, right? We are talking about something that's
No, it's
philosophical.
normal context. A person who is not existent, how will you give them a pleasurable
No,
experience,
that's
a
that's
blissful
not what I'm
experience
saying. Like,
without depriving that person in the first place?
yeah, so you don't have to ask me anything. Like, you could just give me
Why?
the
You are
argument.
saying that you want to give bliss. I'm saying, how will you give that bliss? You have
No,
to first
I'm
impose
I'm not
suffering
saying
without his
anything.
consent.
I'm not saying anything like that. All I'm saying is I don't accept the claim that it is impossible to give someone pleasure without depriving them of pleasure or giving them suffering.
Why not? What is the reason?
I just don't see why it is impossible. I don't take a view on it.
What's the procedure of giving bliss to someone who doesn't exist?
I mean, you're
What's the
shifting the
step?
burden, right? The burden is you made the
Yeah, the
claim.
burden is in your code because the
No,
person
you
who
made the
is doing
claim.
an action.
Hold on.
Listen, listen.
You made the claim that is impossible. So it's your burden to satisfy, not mine. So I
No,
don't
no,
have to
no,
tell
no,
you
no.
anything for you to satisfy your burden.
When I'm doing a action which causes suffering to someone else, I have the burden of proof to justify my
Oh,
action.
no. I'm not
I
talking about that burden, but I'm talking about satisfying the burden of proof for the claim that you made. If you make the claim, then you have the
No,
burden
I
to
didn't make the
substantiate it.
claim. You made the claim in the first place that
Wait,
you
but
would
didn't you
pinch
say
someone
didn't you
and
say it's impossible to give someone pleasure if you don't give them suffering?
yeah.
That's your
Look,
claim. So why would I have to
let me put it.
substantiate it?
Okay, okay. Let me say again. You said that there is a person who is in a neutral state, a blissful experience. You said that I would give him and give him blissful experience. I'm saying that a person who is in neutral state, how will you give them blissful experience without first of all giving them, depriving them of something, of that, depriving them of that experience? deprive or putting.
No. Again, you're trying to ask me questions to get me to make a positive claim. I'm not going to allow that to happen. Like, you made the claim that it is impossible for someone to have pleasure without having suffering. So, what's the argument for that? If it's impossible, under which modality is it impossible? Like, if you're saying it's impossible, right, so there are things which can be impossible on a logical modality. For example, square circles are logically impossible. So square circles, like, analytically speaking, like, circles don't have sides, but squares do have sides. So that would just entail a contradiction that this square is a circle and it's not a circle. Like, it has a side and it doesn't have sides. So that's logically impossible because it entails a contradiction. That's how I understand impossibility to be. Impossibility means something that entails a logical contradiction under some given modality. So square circles can be logically impossible, and by extension they are also physically impossible because they are logically impossible. But there are things which are physically impossible but they are logically possible. For example, I could say I'm traveling at the speed of light. Now that statement is physically impossible because it contradicts the laws of physics, but it does not contradict the laws of logic. So, or it doesn't contradict any rule of inference of logic. So that statement is logically possible, although it is physically impossible. Now I'm asking you, when you make the claim that something, like, when you make the claim that it is impossible to give someone pleasure without giving them suffering, are you saying it's physically impossible or are you saying it's logically impossible? Am I coming through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear my question?
No.
So I'm saying that, like the two examples that you gave, right now I just understood that it is physically impossible to give someone a blissful experience without depriving that person, without first depriving that person or putting them into some suffering state.
Okay, so physically impossible
Now
just
you
means,
prove me wrong. Yeah.
one sec. So physical impossibility just means that there is some kind of contradiction under laws of physics, right?
Oh God, you're just, why you're playing so much of word games here?
Well,
Just speak like a normal person. If
I am
even your
speaking like a
family
normal
member.
person.
No. Look, if
But
you're just
the
saying
point is,
that,
we are discussing something philosophical, so I need to have philosophical nuance, because then otherwise we're just talking past each other, right? So when someone says it's physically impossible, the meaning of that term physically impossible just means that there is some contradiction under laws of logic. So flying at the speed of light is physically impossible because the speed of light is the like, there is a you could refer to general theory of relativity about light being the fastest thing in the universe. So flying at the speed of light would be physically impossible because it contradicts that law. So when you say it is physically impossible for someone to give pleasure to someone else without giving them suffering, are you saying it's physically impossible or are you saying it's logically impossible?
Physically impossible.
Okay,
now
so
you prove me wrong how it is.
Wait.
How I'm contradicting myself.
I didn't say you're contradicting yourself. I said, if
just now you said physical impossibility means contradicting.
Yeah, physical impossibility means there is a contradiction with some law of physics. So when you say it is impossible, when you say it's impossible for someone to give pleasure without giving suffering, what you're essentially saying that is that there is some law of physics that is being violated in virtue of
it's biology. Pleasure is biology.
Yeah, I mean, biology is ultimately reducible to physics under many views of philosophy of biology, but okay. But
Are
like,
we
what do
now
you?
are we now going back to string theory then from biology, sensory? I don't
Uh,
know how
I
we'll
I
complete
don't
this conversation if you
I
just
I
playing with
don't
word games.
one sec. I don't know. Wait, one sec. So is it not the case that you're saying it is physically impossible? You're saying it's physically impossible or no?
Yeah,
Okay, so
100 times I'm saying yeah.
so if you're saying it is physically impossible, that just means
Yeah.
that there is some law of physics being violated. So which law of
How?
physics is it?
Prove it.
Wait, that's just analytically true. Like that's just what physical impossibility means. Physical impossibility by definition means that there is some law of physics being violated.
That's what I want to understand how I am contradicting myself.
I didn't say you are contradicting yourself. I am saying that you are making
Oh
the
God.
claim that there is a contradiction entailed by affirming that someone can give pleasure without giving suffering. I didn't say you are contradicting yourself.
You say that a neutral person can be given infinite bliss. I'm saying that it is
I
not
didn't say that.
possible. Now,
I didn't
oh,
say that. I like, but
you said you would pinch a neutral person and he would gain infinite bliss.
yeah, I'm stipulating that.
Then what are we doing? You're going in circles. Once you're telling I didn't say that. Again,
Yeah, I mean, me stipulating it and me taking a view on it are two different things.
so tell me, is it possible or not to give a neutral person a blissful state?
Don't ask me questions to push if the burden
Why
onto me.
not?
You
Yeah,
made
you
the
claim
claim.
that.
You made
No,
the
you
claim.
claim.
Okay, do you not believe that it is physically impossible?
It was your analogy. I'm saying that your analogy was wrong. Now you have to prove it that how it was not wrong.
Wait, I don't know what you mean by wrong.
This is the type of word games you play when you don't have a good argument, you know. Now
I mean,
you
I
have to
don't like.
define every word. What is harm? What is suffering? What is wrong? What is right?
Yeah, I'm not interested in
This
talking
is a red
about.
herring, you know.
I'm not talking. I'm not interested in talking about the conversation, right? So you made the claim that it is physically impossible for someone to give pleasure without
Yeah, because
giving
first of all
suffering.
you say
Hold
that
on,
it is
hold on,
possible.
hold on. Well, I can take the view that it is possible, and by
Yeah,
possible, I
prove
just
it.
mean that there is no contradiction.
How is it possible to give someone from a neutral state a blissful
Yeah,
experience without first?
it's possible on a
How?
logical modality that there is no
How?
contradiction under. If I take all the axioms of logic and if I take all the rules of inferences, I don't see a contradiction there. If I analyze the meanings of the term suffering and pleasure, I don't see a contradiction there. If I take all the laws of physics and I stack them, and I also take the laws of logic and I stack them, I don't see a contradiction there. So I think if I don't see a contradiction on the physical modality and a logical modality, then it's not the case that it is impossible on a physical modality and on a logical modality.
Okay, let's end it. This part, let's end it because
No, no,
we
no,
are
no.
going round and round.
I
Okay.
can't. I won't let you end it, right? So if unless you're
Yeah,
going
because
to,
you're contradicting yourself. Because first of all, you say that it is possible. I'm saying how it is possible without first giving
yeah,
them suffering or
and
depriving.
I'm
There
saying
was
it's
no one
possible.
deprived.
Hold
How
on.
would you?
Yeah, I'm saying it's possible in virtue of there being no contradiction. There is no contradiction
How?
entailed.
How? I'm saying there is contradiction.
Okay,
Because
what's the
because you have
contradiction?
the contradiction is that before you can give them infinite bliss, you have to create infinite deprivation. That they were deprived and now you fulfill the
That's just begging the
deprivation.
question.
What?
You're just repeating the claim.
So do you agree that we have to first impose suffering on
Of
them
course
without their
not.
consent?
Of course
Then
not.
how would you impose infinite bliss?
Yeah, I'm saying it's logically and physically possible. There is no
How?
contradiction entailed.
Give me an example.
I gave you an example
Give
before,
me a
and
real world example. Give me a pleasurable
why
experience
why
and tell
would
me
I
how
have
it
to
is
give you? I
possible.
mean, it's your burden that you think it's impossible,
No,
right?
no, no, no. From the first time saying the burden is not on the breeders, but on the burden is on the breeders, not on the
Okay,
antinatalists.
wait. Do you understand what burden of proof is?
Yeah, you have to prove when certain actions causes a suffering to a third person, you have to prove that
That's
how
not
your
what burden
actions
of
are
proof
justified.
is. Like if you
Then
look,
define it.
yeah, if you look at like the literature, burden of proof was first made by like one of the classic examples of burden of proof is Russell's teapot. So the philosopher Bertrand Russell gave an example that if someone came and they said that there is a flying teapot that is revolving around Jupiter, right? If there was like they say there is a flying teapot revolving around Jupiter, so they made the claim. The burden of proof, as in who needs to provide an argument, is the one who makes the claim. So you are the one who is making the claim that it is physically impossible that to give someone pleasure without giving someone suffering. So I'm asking you, what's the argument for that?
The burden of proof is on the breeders. That's what I said.
I mean, we are talking about different things then. I'm talking about burden of proof in the sense that you made a claim, you need to justify the claim.
So did you in the first place.
Yeah. And my response, I'm satisfying my burden by undercutting yours.
This is just word games, all you are playing in the first time.
Yeah, I mean,
there is nothing.
Is there something you don't understand?
Yeah, every word that is coming out of your mouth.
Okay, then I made you an offer, right? When we started, I made you an offer that if you don't understand something, just ask me, I'll explain it to you. Instead, you're just going on this meta rant about it being like a word game.
No, because you are asking me to define every word.
Yeah, one sec.
What is suffering? What is pain?
One sec. Okay, are you going to? Can I get a concession that yes, I did make you that offer? I made you an offer. Do you concede that I did make you an offer?
Yeah, of course you made that offer.
Yeah, so I made you an offer to explain things when you don't understand something, right? So why didn't you just ask me? Why are you going on this rant about word games and all that? You could just ask me what I mean.
Okay, because the certain things I cannot ask you every word that what is the definition according to you, because that's not how conversation goes in a normal day-to-day life.
Well, we are not having a moral conversation. We are having a philosophical conversation. So there is going to be a nuance that is there in this kind of conversation.
Okay, then let's not have a philosophical conversation.
But this is a philosophical topic.
I said I'm not a philosophical student.
I'm not a philosophy student either, by the way.
So then let's have a normal human being. Like when someone in your house gets in an accident, you don't say that define me pain.
Yeah, but the problem is
the pain is subjective. You don't say like that. That's what I'm saying, that make a normal conversation.
The problem is that this is a philosophical topic, so it requires some kind of philosophical rigor. Like if you say it is impossible to give someone pleasure without giving them suffering, that's a philosophical question. You need to substantiate it. Don't just ramble out. I'm not going to let you ramble out of this. So if you're saying it is physically impossible, show me the laws of physics that are being violated by...
Okay, so what's the... Let's for conversation, let's assume that it is possible to give someone infinite bliss. Okay?
No, I'm not going to go on a conditional thing. We are going to
settle
this.
What do you want? What's the conclusion?
Yeah, we are going to settle this and then we are going to move ahead. So either you give me...
It's not going to be settled. You're gonna be asking me each definition of each word.
No, I'm asking you, what is the law of physics that is being violated by...
What I understand is that it's a law of biology. There are sensory organs in our body that causes uncomfortable feelings. And we ought not to make someone... we ought not to impose those obnoxious suffering.
Yeah, that's just begging the question. You're repeating the same claim over again.
Do you feel pain?
Yeah.
So when you create someone, in the normal context, not hypothetically, when you give birth to someone, what are the two possibilities? One, that they will feel inevitable pain, isn't it? You agreed that when we give someone birth, they're gonna feel inevitable pain, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So what gives you the right to impose that inevitable pain without the consent?
I don't see why I require such a thing. That's precisely the thing under contention. Like, why would I even...
Then everything would be permissible. Rape, murder, everything is permissible because everybody would say that.
How does that follow?
Because you said consent doesn't matter to you without.
No,
Because
that's
when
not
you
what I
are you
said.
are
That's not
yeah, you are
that's
saying that we can
dishonest.
do.
That's dishonest.
You
I never
said
said
that
that.
we. Okay, let me start again then. Do we agree that life
No, 1
contains
sec. But then
inevitable
you're
suffering?
weaseling out, right? So when you say
No, no.
like
See,
you're
now you see how I am putting you. Now you are
yeah,
stopping me.
no, yeah, I'm stopping you
Does
because
life?
we were talking about something which is the physical impossibility. You're weaseling out of that, and I'm not going to let you weasel out of that. You're going to either substantiate the claim, retract the
What
claim, or concede.
you will not agree with me. Then what can how can I proceed from there?
Yeah, you
You
can.
would say that it
Yeah,
is wrong.
you could.
I would say
Yeah, you could either substantiate the claim, you could retract the
what?
claim, or you could concede.
No.
So those are the three options, right?
Look, then we can start from there. You said you can pinch someone who is in a neutral state and give them infinite bliss.
Yeah.
Prove it. How? I'm saying how can you do that? You made a claim. I'm
Yeah.
saying how did you do that?
Yeah. So when I say it is possible, I
Yeah.
mean that there is no contradiction.
Yeah, it's a contradiction because if you
What
want to give
contradiction?
someone because you if in the normal day-to-day life if you observe if we want happiness we have to first go through suffering and deprivation.
That's just repeating the claim. That's precisely the claim I'm disputing.
What how will you dispute it?
Yeah, I'm just saying that
Give me one example in the day-to-day life about a pleasure in which
I don't
first
have
of
to
all
give
you
you
were not
that.
deprived.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to
Then
give you a.
how will you prove me wrong?
Hold on. I don't have to give you a real life example for it to be possible
Why not?
logically. I mean, you made the claim that it is physically impossible to give someone pleasure.
Yeah, because first of all
Yeah,
you made
so
a claim that it is possible.
yeah, so when I say it's possible, right? All I
Yeah.
mean is that it doesn't entail a contradiction under
Yeah,
given
I
modality, and it is
then I
not.
said that it is entailing a contradiction because because in day
Yeah,
to
so
day life we see
you need to tell me which law of physics or which law of
yes
logic is being violated or contradicted.
yeah
Yeah, so
okay.
which one
So,
is it?
first of all this is a you are talking about a hypothetical
Yeah, one
situation
sec. Which is
and
the physical law that's being contradicted?
why does it has to be a physical law?
Because you said it is physically impossible.
Then should I say it biologically impossible?
Okay, then what's the law of biology that is being violated?
Because there are pain receptors and like hormonal receptors
Okay,
the hormones releases.
what's the biological law that's being violated?
The biological law is that you cannot create pleasure without first of all depriving
That's just
that
begging the
person.
question.
Because in biology, let's say right now,
Do you
if I
understand
give you a heroin,
do you understand what begging the question is?
no,
Begging the question is when you assume the truth of the premise, when you
Yeah.
assume the conclusion in your premise.
okay, then I'm saying that right now, if I give you a heroin, a dose of heroin, would you enjoy it?
I don't know.
Oh God, you wouldn't enjoy it. You wouldn't
I
enjoy
don't know.
heroin right now.
I haven't experienced heroin dosage, so I don't know if I would enjoy it or not.
Because the receptors would go into your bloodstream and it would cause pleasure, intense pleasure. Why did you get that intense pleasure? Because you were deprived of that of those molecules in the first
But
place.
that doesn't mean there is suffering. Suffering is not absence of pleasure. Suffering is
No,
something
we are
different.
talking from neutral. We are talking from neutral case.
Yeah, so do you agree that you can go from neutral to pleasure without giving suffering?
Yeah, first we are deprived. You have to first deprive it.
No, that's not. Again, that's not how it follows. For
Of
there
course,
to
you
be
were
firing, there needs to be no firing. But no firing doesn't mean suffering.
there was. I'm saying deprivation. Deprivation is suffering.
No. If there are
Of course.
if there are no
When you
well,
compare
one
it,
sec,
when
one
you
sec.
compare it
One sec,
with
What
infinite
do you
bliss,
one sec? What do you mean by deprivation then?
deprivation is what do you say? A lack of a lack of blissful state.
Lack of blissful state, yeah, and I don't think that is suffering. A deprivation of a blissful state is not like a lack of
What
bliss is not
what is that?
suffering.
What is that?
It would be something neutral. Wouldn't be suffering on my view.
You but when you compare it to the blissful state, it would be suffering.
No, it wouldn't be.
A heroin addict, when you give him, once he gets that blissful state, now when he comes out
Now
of
you're
that
talking
blissful
about
state,
heroin
now
addicts. What about
because
people who
that's
aren't
a
addicted
blissful
to it?
state. Okay, I'm talking about real life example. I'm giving real life example. You give me a real life example how it is possible.
I don't
A
have to give you
non-existent
a real
person.
life example. Like, for instance, I don't have to give you a real life
Then
example.
why?
Hold on. I don't have to give you a real life example of a water propelled car in order for a water propelled car to be possible under a physical modality. Do you understand that?
But we are talking here
One
about the
sec, do you
breathing
understand
of
that example? I don't have
yeah,
to
I
give
understand.
you a real life example of a water propelled car to say that it is
Okay,
possible for a car to be propelled by water.
correct. Yeah.
Similarly, I don't have to give you a real life example to say that it is physically possible to give someone pleasure without giving them suffering.
Okay.
So I don't know
But
why you're trying to shift the burden onto me.
okay, let's then agree on this. Okay, let's continue from here.
We
Let's agree in a hypothetical situation. It
No,
is
no, no, no,
possible.
no, not in a hypothetical
What do
situation.
you want me to do? I'm agreeing with
That's
you.
I mean that's a conditional agreement. I want an unconditional agreement. It's not like in a
And
hypothetical it
okay,
is
I'm giving you an unconditional agreement that
okay.
it is possible for a
Fantastic.
hypothetically.
No, no,
Okay,
no. Okay,
this is not
that's conditional, right? So that's conditional.
what it is
I
not hypothetical situation. Then we are talking
Yeah.
about a
So
hypothetical example.
when I say like a water propelled car is physically possible, I don't have to I don't have to qualify
Listen.
it,
You
right?
can you give me an example where a non-existent person can be given infinite bliss without first giving deprivation,
I'm not
or
talking
is it
about
hypothetical?
I'm not talking about
Exactly, you are
non-existent
talking about
people.
hypothetical situation. I'm saying that
No, I'm
hypothetically it
not.
is
I'm
possible
talking
then.
about existing people. I'm not talking
Oh,
about
no.
non-existent people. I'm talking about existing people.
What existing people?
Yeah, so I'm saying a person
It's
already
a
exists.
hypothetical situation, yes or no?
Yeah, it is a hypothetical.
A hypothetical situation in which there is a neutral person
There
who
is a
was not in
person.
the need of.
Yeah, there is a
Okay,
person. They are not non-existent in that world. In that world, they are
okay,
existing.
of course, yeah. In a neutral condition, was not in the need of that pleasure,
Yeah,
and you give him little bit of suffering
yeah,
in order to give a greater amount of pleasure
yeah. Not a greater amount.
without his
I said
consent.
infinite amount.
That's infinite means, of course, minuscule pain and infinite
Yeah,
bliss.
infinite pleasure versus maybe like a pinch of suffering.
Yeah, I'm saying it is permissible then in that case to procreate.
I'm not talking about procreation at all. The point I was trying, again, I think this is the
Okay,
third time.
consent. Yeah,
Yeah, the third time I'm repeating this. The point of that hypothetical was just to illustrate that consent violation
yeah.
and like consent violations are justified in cases even where there is no reduction in suffering, but simply
Yeah,
there is
in
like
a,
an increase in well-being.
yeah, there can be 1,000 hypothetical case like that where this is possible.
Yeah, but if it is possible, then the premise is falsified.
How? I'm talking about real life example.
Yeah, so you're making the case that it is not possible. You said it's not possible to give someone pleasure without giving them suffering. So this just flat
Because
out
because
refutes that.
because
It is
in the
possible.
big in the hypothetical situation, many things can happen in hypothetical. God can exist in hypothetical situation.
Sure.
You don't go in a atheist discussion and say that in hypothetical situation God is present.
Yeah, why can't I say that? I mean, I don't want to get into that tangent, but you can obviously say
Then,
it.
but what is the purpose of saying like that?
That's
Means?
it depends on the
What's the
context. It
conclusion?
depends on the context. The conclusion is that I don't think
Hmm.
consent violation is only justified if there is a reduction in pain. It could be justified in other cases.
In
So,
hypothetical
but
situation, you
that
have to
one
mention it.
no. One sec. One sec.
Give me a real life example then, if it's not hypothetical.
Yeah, again, I don't have to give you a real life example to say it's possible. I just have to show you
Why?
that there is no contradiction, and I've already shown you the contradiction.
Contradiction in a hypothetical case. Give me a contradiction, not a contradiction in a real life example. Then you can say that I don't have to prove in
But
other real life
yeah,
example.
but then that's again you're begging the question, right? You're saying it's not possible in
What?
the real case. I'm saying it's possible even in the real
First,
case.
how?
Yeah, I mean that's what I said.
You have to prove it because you're claiming you have to prove it.
Yeah, the proof is that there is no contradiction under any given modality. There is no modality under which there like
In a
either the physics.
hypothetical case,
No. Even in real life, it is
give me an
possible.
example.
But
Give me an example.
I don't have to give you an example to tell you it's possible.
Oh God, this is not how conversation goes. I'm not
Yeah,
interested in this sort of
yeah.
conversation.
If do you want to run away or do you want to retract the claim?
No, because you cannot give me a simple question. The question which I first of all questioned you.
Yeah,
Do you want,
I
as
mean,
long as
hmm
listen, so as long as people are going to give birth, no matter what the conditions, certain children are going to suffer, isn't it?
I don't take a view on that. There could like it could be, yeah, could be possible, yeah.
So is it morally permissible to gamble with someone else's life?
That's a loaded question because you're assuming that there is a significant risk. I don't think there's a
Because you
significant
agreed,
risk.
significant risk. The death is 100%.
Yeah, so
It's inevitable.
I don't think it would be a rights violation to give birth to someone who would eventually die.
You don't think it's a rights violation imposing death on someone without their consent?
Again, that's sort of a loaded question because you're assuming that there is an imposition. It's not, well, you could say it's an exposition. You are exposing them to death, but I don't think it would be a rights violation to give someone birth who would eventually die. Yeah, I don't think that's a rights violation.
You don't think it's a rights violation?
To give birth to someone who would eventually die. Yeah, that's right.
Is death suffering then, according to you?
I am not sure. It depends on the nature of death.
What kind of death is peaceful and enjoyable then?
Yeah, I guess it's possible for someone to die peacefully.
Not hypothetically, I think real life you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that it could be possible that someone died in real life peacefully.
Another question I have about this is procreation. I think procreation is also you say it's not a human right violation. I'm saying it's a human right violation because if we believe that we all have the right to life, right?
Depends. I don't have a realist view of rights.
So I don't know. I don't understand how we gonna go to a conversation if we have to stop and inquire the meaning of every word. Like I'm saying right to life, you're saying I don't know what the right of life according to
That's
you.
not what I said.
How
I said I don't have a realist view of rights to life.
just a
I
plain
have
simple yes or no. Do we have the right to life?
Depends on what right to life means. If you mean some
That's
realist
exactly
concept,
that
then no.
what I'm
Yeah, if you mean some realist concept of rights, then no. If you mean some
okay for
anti-realist
1 minute.
concept, then probably, yeah. I take a view on right to life, but that's not a realist view. So I don't know what you're talking about when you're taking a right to life, when you're asking me whether we have a right to
In
life.
normal context, like a normal layman
Yeah,
asking
so
you, do I have the right to
do you
life?
want a layman to just give you like a weak criticism, or do you want a philosophically robust criticism?
According to me, I'm not a philosopher. I don't want philosophical
Okay,
questions.
so
If
you don't I mean that's
discussion
not what I asked you. I asked you, do you want like a weak ass layman criticism of your view,
layman, yeah,
or,
because only
or do
not
you
only the
want a philosophically rigorous academic criticism which actually holds
no
water? You don't want that. You don't want a rigorous critique.
no because not only
Wait.
philosophers
You
breathe,
don't want a rigorous
layman's
critique of your
breathe.
view. You don't want a strong critique of your view.
Yeah, because not what
No,
is
you
right to
don't want
life, I
it.
don't know.
Wait. You don't want a rigorous, strong criticism of your views.
Yeah, of course I want someone to justify procreation. Of
No,
course, that I want.
wait. That's not what I asked you. I asked you, do you want a strong, rigorous criticism of your views?
What do you mean by strong?
Yeah, something that is
Like loaded
philosophically.
words, philosophical words, big
Yeah,
words,
like
like
a
that?
strong criticism which does not have any holes.
Then if you like holes, what do you mean? A layman cannot justify procreation then, according to you?
No, that's not what I said. I just said that
Yeah,
they.
that's what you're saying,
No,
because
that's not what I said at all. Did okay? Can we can get a
you are
poll on
saying
this?
that.
Okay, we can get a poll on this.
No,
Can
wait,
one sec, one sec.
wait,
Can someone initiate a
wait.
poll? Did I ever say layman cannot justify procreation? Can we get a poll in general chat or something?
Just now you said, man.
Did I ever say that?
No, you didn't.
भाई
Oh my
2
god, this is such
सेकंड
a weird
इधर
thing to get
इधर
hung up
बाय द
on.
वे ना वॉइस चैट के अंदर जितने भी लोग बैठे हैं सबके सब लेमेंस हैं, तो सबको समझ आ रही है क्या बात हो रही है। तो ऐसा अगर कोई एक्स्ट्रा स्पेशल लेमन है जिसको कुछ समझ नहीं आती तो वो उसकी प्रॉब्लम है।
What if I asked you, right, what is right to life? Would you say that you want a philosophical answer or
I
a
didn't
layman
say.
answer? Would you talk like that?
I asked you what you mean by.
Can I interject a bit here, Putal?
Yeah,
Just
sure,
like 1
sure.
second.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, like a Bengali and Natalist. So, like,
Yeah.
what do you mean when you say rights? Will you be able to like give a layman's explanation of rights?
Rights is something which mm,
Yeah, I think I've
certain actions
demonstrated. I
that are
think okay. I think I've demonstrated my point here, right? It's not easy to do that because there isn't a layman's definition of rights, right? This God-given rights thing is basically a part of manifest destiny. It's just a whole historical idiocy. So there's been attempts to like codify the meaning of words like rights and shit in a philosophical sense so that it makes sense to everybody, right? When we have this vague ass definition, oh, right to do this and this that, it doesn't really mean anything. It means nothing, and it's very often applied in the legal sense, not really in like in a layman's sense at all, right? So that's all I had to say. Sorry.
Yeah, and
no, in the
even if we
layman's
apply.
sense is that if someone comes to kill me, I can say that I have the right to life. I have right to live.
What is that like? But are you saying that this person will instantly stop if you say that? Like it's like a swiper no
He
swiping,
would
swiper
not.
no swiping. This person will just go away.
He may go away, but he would violate my right to life.
Yeah, which just means that they like. I mean, it depends on what your view of right is. Maybe you take a realist view of rights. I don't. I just take rights to be something we ought not do to people, and that is indexed to my desires and preferences. So, if someone killed you, they quote unquote violated your right to life. All I would say is
Yeah.
that they committed a rights violation, and rights violation just mean that they did something that I don't approve of.
Yeah. So do everyone have the right to life?
No, I
Or
don't
can
think
anyone
everyone
come and
has.
kill them?
I don't think everyone has the right to life. I definitely think there are individuals who it would be good to kill.
You mean terrorists and
Yeah,
people like that?
there could be many such people who it would be a good thing to kill. So they don't have a right to life, on my view. But then I don't know if you're appreciating the problem. The problem is that you're asking for like some weak ass critique, which I am not here to give. I'm going to give you like the most rigorous one. Someone could probably give you a better one, but I'm at least going to give you something that is in line with academic philosophy. Like antinatalism
no.
actually has
Exactly,
been.
what I was saying the first time,
Let me
that
finish.
I'm not here to do academic debates because I'm not from an academic
Well, I'll just tell
background.
you,
So
I am not an academic philosopher either, and neither is anyone in this VC. Nobody here is an academic philosopher,
then why are we acting like one?
because we just feel that this is the best way to get to the roots of our views. That's the way that we can collect the best views and reject the ones that are false.
Why not talk like a normal lay person who are making
Yeah, I
the
think
decision in day-to-day life?
yeah, I think Zulu demonstrated why that was not going to work.
Then how are we gonna propagate any idea? How are you gonna propagate veganism? How do you propagate it?
Yeah, do you think you can't propagate something?
Again, see, I told you this earlier. You're not doing outreach here, right? Like this is not where you're doing antinatalism outreach. You cannot say that just because we behave a certain way during vegan outreach on the streets,
Yeah,
that's how we should behave here, right?
this is my antinatalism outreach. You can consider it.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
you can consider it. We don't.
Because in the beginning I said it, man. I'm not in the academic philosophy. Let's not act like one.
yeah, but the thing is, you don't have to be an academic philosopher to employ the same tools, because these tools achieve the same
What?
thing. Like, I don't have to be a mechanic
The-
in order for me to use a spanner to open a nut, because spanners are the
You
best
can-
tools to open nuts. I don't have to be a
You can
mechanic for
learn
that,
that.
but mechanics are the ones who initiated that.
I don't know, man. You can learn like this and not have a degree to call yourself a academic philosopher.
Yeah, I
But you
don't
need,
have a
if you
degree in
want some
academic philosophy.
if you want an academic philosophy discussion, then you have to get those kind of debaters. I'm in the beginning I said it.
Yeah, so do you I
So
mean,
why
then we could just,
why
like,
are we having
if you
that
don't,
tone of discussion
okay,
then?
then if then that would commit you to the view that you aren't able to justify your own claims,
What claims? Just
that
let us
it is,
talk like a layman.
yeah,
You are just
wait,
you just
what,
cherry picking.
wait, 1 sec, did I use any non-layman term in the last 20 seconds?
Of course,
What term did I use?
like this example, like I've said that
No, no, no,
do
no, no.
individuals have right to life? You said that do you want a rigorous
No, 1 sec. So
definition? Or,
why are you talking about layman things when I didn't say anything lame that is not layman in the last 1 minute?
because you are not answering like a layman. Because when I'm
Of
asking
course,
you
I'm
that
not
there are
going to
certain,
answer like a layman, because a layman is not
exactly,
going
why
to.
are you answering like an academic philosopher then? I'm said I don't
Yeah,
want an academic discussion here.
okay. So you don't
Because
want.
you would
Yeah, you
always
don't.
win.
You
Introduce
don't want a rigorous critique. That's just what it means. You just want to, like, talk to some random ass people who have no arguments against you, and you want to score a win. Is that what you want to do? Or do you want to talk to someone who has a strong view and they are able to push back on your views? Because if you just want someone random ass person who has no response to you, then you can do that elsewhere. But this is like but that just tells me that you have no power over someone who has some understanding of basic philosophy. You might be able to overpower some layman, but you won't be able to overpower someone who is slightly more philosophically literate than a layman. That's just what I'm getting from you. It seems like you just want to one up layman, and like feel good. Oh, I destroyed this layman.
I mean, they clearly admitted they're doing outreach. So when we do outreach as vegans, our goal is not to have like a philosophical discussion about
Yeah.
veganism, right? We'll do that if necessary. Our goal is to convert people to veganism.
Yeah,
so
but
clearly, like that's what they want to do here.
Yeah, but Zulu, if someone comes during an outreach and starts engaging in a philosophical conversation, of course you will placate them. You'll like
Absolutely, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
and that's
yeah.
just
the
what
mistake
I'm doing.
they're making here.
Yeah. Like, if you think you aren't capable of this conversation, that is as good of a concession to me as it is. You can get someone who you think is philosophically literate, and we can talk to them. But if you think that's not you, then I think we can just end the conversation.
Are they having a power cut now?
I don't know. Seems not. So yeah, like, do you want to say, like, are you saying that you're not the person?
I want to ask you, why did you start it in the first place? When I said that I don't want an academic
One sec.
here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I also made you the offer that you can ask me questions and I can explain it to you.
But this is not how discussion works. I don't want to learn philosophy from you right now.
Yeah, so you're just saying that you don't like you're not the person to have a philosophical conversation, right? And you don't
No,
have you don't
I,
have any power over someone who is slightly philosophically literate. And
no, yeah,
yeah, that's what you're saying, right?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I appreciate that admission. Like
Then why did you start it then?
I mean, I thought you would be willing to learn, and I'm happy to
No,
share
this
whatever I've
I'm
learned over
not here
time.
to learn philosophy and its different words and different schools of
Yeah. So
thought.
okay, one sec.
I'm here
So
to discuss
you
antinatalism like a normal person.
yeah. So you
Because
admit
you are a
hold on. You admit that you aren't able to hold a philosophically literate conversation over here, right? You admit that.
and the first line
Are
that
you
came
say
out of my mouth was like
just answer
this.
the question?
That's what I'm
Is
answering.
that a yes or is
In
that
the
a no? Are you able to so you're not able to hold a philosophical conversation over here,
I
right?
gave I gave a
Yes or
disclaimer
no?
in the I gave a disclaimer in
Yes,
the beginning.
yes or no?
Could you allow me to answer?
If you say yes or no, yes, I will allow you to answer.
I said I'm
Are
not an
you
academic
no? Yeah,
philosopher
I
in the
know that. I
sense.
know that. I know that. But
Yes,
now
then
I'm
no. The answer is no.
yeah,
Correct. Yes.
fantastic. Thanks for answering. So, but then that's the problem. You are
What?
not talking to an average layman here.
Then why
So
did you start it, man? Why did you
yeah,
start it
because
then?
I anticipated that you would be someone who is willing to learn and maybe even reflect
Learn
on your
what?
views.
Learn what, man?
A bit of philosophical
Different
rigor.
terms of philosophy. Different. I don't want antinat. I want to discuss antinatalism to a layman here.
Yeah.
I
So,
want to preach antinatalism.
but
That's the
then
goal
yeah,
here.
but then I'm not really a layman, right? So
No,
so in an outreach,
you know
in
how
an
to,
in
you
an
know how to play word game.
hold on
You know how to play word game.
hold on in an
You didn't
outreach,
answer a single question.
hold on in an outreach. I mean that's the false claim. There have been plenty of questions that I've answered.
Okay, you upload it in the YouTube.
But
Let's
yeah,
see what.
hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the point is that in an outreach, you're generally talking to a layman, and your motivation to me seems just like you want to talk to laymen and you want to like overpower them and feel good about it. That's kind of the vibe
Yeah.
I'm getting.
No,
But
the main aim is to spread
if someone
antinatalism to layman.
hold on, yeah, if someone is going to come with like a philosophically rigorous position which they have thought through, like a layman probably has never thought about breeding being moral or immoral, but
Yeah.
when you come across someone who has thought through it, right, and is levying a critique
What?
against your view, you can't handle it. So my point is that if that's not
So
what
you mean to say, okay. So you mean to say you have thought about breeding and you can justify procreation.
I don't even think that is something that requires justification in most cases.
You say you are imposing, you have to justify. You're saying that I have thought about breeding,
Yeah, that's just repeating the
procreation, I can
claim.
justify it.
That's just repeating the claim. But anyway, the point is
Give
that
me an give me
yeah,
give me an unselfish reason to have a kid.
what?
Give me one unselfish reason to have a kid.
I don't know why that would have to be the case. Like, I don't see why there has to be a non-selfish reason. There could be a selfish reason, but that is still moral.
How?
Yeah, like let's say I had a selfish reason that I want to feel good about giving money to poor people, and I give money to poor people for
I'm
that
talking
selfish
about
reason, right?
I
Yeah.
told you give me one about giving
Hold on. Yeah, the point is there can be there can be selfish reasons for doing an action while the action is still moral.
I told you to name one unselfish reason to have a kid.
I mean that's that you're not following, right?
You are not answering. Give me one unselfish reason to have a kid.
Why would I need to give you an unselfish reason?
Because you said you thought about procreation and you think it is
Yeah, and
justified.
I think even if we have it for selfish reasons,
It is justified.
yeah, it would be justified.
Wow. Please upload this to YouTube, okay?
Yeah. So, but yeah, like but
No,
you
I have nothing else to say.
yeah,
Okay.
hold on.
This is not how discussion goes.
I want a concession from you that
What?
you are not willing to learn about any basic philosophy, and you're not willing to examine your views.
Not from you.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I
That's
didn't
as
came here to learn
that.
philosophy
Yeah,
from you.
that's as good of a concession as it can get. So thank you for that.
Okay, welcome. Please
Yeah,
upload it to this.
sure. I will definitely upload it.
Okay, okay, thank
Wait, I've got something to ask you if you don't mind.
Oh, sure.
you. Sure.
No, I mean Bengali antinatalists, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
you believe that natalism is an evil that plagues the world right now, right? Like giving birth to children is bad and stuff. You believe that, correct?
Of course.
All right. So don't do you think you should maximize your effectiveness in spreading the message of antinatalism?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way to do that would be to engage in these things and not get pissed off because you're clearly pissed off and you're like, I don't want to learn it
Look at
from
look.
you. Like, what has
No,
Aputa
no.
done to you? Why do you not want to
Listen,
learn it from him? Like,
listen.
what's the problem
I
here?
have I have came here to discuss
It
antinatalism,
doesn't
not
matter, right?
just
Like the poor children being born and suffering, the poor things like forced into this world without their consent, right?
yeah.
Your feelings don't matter to them, right? Like what you came here for is irrelevant to them. Right, you see, I'm using the same kind of things we say to
What?
vegan activists when they start getting personally, motivated and shit, right?
I
Like you
didn't
have to,
understand what you said.
uh, fuck, I really want to switch to Bengali, but look, what I'm trying to say is that there are children currently being born against their will, right? They are suffering,
Yeah,
right? Now, what you came here to do does not matter to them, right? If you're not
yeah,
effectively spreading your message, right, you said it yourself. You came here to do antinatalism activism, right?
correct.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so if and you failed at it right now. So far, you're failing at it.
How?
So well, I mean,
When the opponent person wants to teach you philosophy instead of
forget about
debating
Aputa. Like you
antinatalism.
clearly have a problem with Aputa. There are other people listening to this. That will be uploaded on YouTube. You don't come off looking
Yeah,
very
yeah,
good here,
of course.
right?
How
So
not? Why not?
now,
People will say because the arguments of
no,
antinatalism
I
I have
understand.
tried.
Understand that I'm somebody who's not pro-natalist or anti-natalist, right? I think like yeah, if you want to breed, breed. If you don't want, but like keep in mind the
You're a
fact that
natalist.
I'm not really a natalist, right? Like I don't know what I am because like I don't take a strong position because I haven't really thought about this too hard. Like this is not something that I'm informed enough to like take a strong stance that yeah you should breed or no you shouldn't breed. Right, so
Yeah.
I'm somebody you could have converted right now, and yeah, right now I'm feeling pretty anti-natalist. Sorry, natalist. Sorry, my bad.
How
Right,
you?
yeah,
Because
because
when I
what I saw was like two people having a discourse and one person simply refusing to engage, and their reason is like I don't want to learn it from you. Okay,
no, no,
so
no.
clearly,
Because when I am putting forward the antinatalist arguments, if the other person starts to pick up one word and starts to give history and philosophy about it and starts to teaching, how
that's
will
not what
you
happened.
present
That's not what
him?
happened, right? He used a
Okay,
word you didn't
okay,
understand, or
okay.
sorry, no,
You
sorry.
can
He
listen to
asked
the
he
whole
asked you what you
conversation.
mean by
Okay.
a certain word, right? He asked you
Yeah.
what you mean by a
Listen.
certain word, and then you went into this meta like, why are you asking me the meaning of every word after he did it two
Yeah.
or three times?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. We should be concerned about the argument, not how the word
no,
needs to be
but the
defined.
argument. Okay, so
Just giving the
how is an
argument.
argument built? Right. What are the components of an argument? Words, yes. So if people are not clear about the words being used to formulate their argument, then you will want clarity. I don't see a problem with that. And you have to have
When
the
you
patience to explain every word. Yes. Like
that is required to win the argument in the academic philosophy and stuff. But
it's not
when you
about
go
winning
in
an
the
argument. You're
listen,
trying
when
to. It's
you
not about winning an argument. What is this winning losing
yeah
bullshit? No.
yeah that is what he's saying. He wants to get the trophy at the end. You know,
What?
listen,
Which
he
trophy? Who's giving him a trophy?
yeah, like he's trying
Where
to
did
get
I? Am I receiving a
get
trophy? I
from
didn't know
me.
that.
No, my statement at the end. He wants the statement that he made me quit, like that kind of statement. That's his trophy.
Yeah, it's a concession, which is I think
Yeah.
expected of
That's
any
the
honest
trophy.
person.
I
Exactly,
mean
because you want
that
to.
is see, that was closure to the discussion, right? Like, and I took that as a signal
No. Have you
for closure, and
as
that's when I
as
Yeah,
stepped in, right?
that's all it is.
as I was setting up this I was trying to set up in YouTube. I saw his channel and I realized that I watched his video previously with Lawrence Anton. He did the same exact thing. He would pick up a word and start discussing about that word, what does that mean,
Yeah, and
and
what's
that's how
wrong
he
with
won
that?
every argument. This is not how the argument works, man. This is not how you
Okay,
spread
wait,
a
What
yeah.
the
philosophy.
argument? What
Okay.
is this mythical the argument you're talking about?
Because I have presented
भाई
many arguments, he
जल्दी
has
से
just
सर्वर एंडर कौशल को बुलाया जाए, मैं एक ट्रॉफी अवार्ड करना चाहूंगा।
No, 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 wait, hold on,
ट्रॉफी
guys.
okay,
चाहिए
okay,
मुझे।
Yeah.
thank you,
This
Ritan. Thank you.
argument in the room with us right now.
मैं
Oh,
आर्ग्यूमेंट
he
हूँ, आई
ran
एम द आर्ग्यूमेंट।
away. Oh man. Okay,
Look,
anyway.
Yeah,
पता है
I
पता
think
है
too many of us
while
chimed in.
Yeah, yeah.
while you were gone, पता है
Huh.
like oh he so we were just
Fine,
talking
wait,
to
one
him, so
sec.
he
Fine, one sec. I want to end
yeah.
this recording, so I'll just like I need to make this one thing clear. He's talking about this words thing, right? So I just need to make that clear. Like, why do I ask for meanings of words that people are using, right? So an argument is built out of premises and a conclusion. So there is going to be some propositions which are statements which are true or false, which can be true or false, assuming like a two-valued logic. It could take a many-valued logic, but generally propositions are statements which can be true or false. Now these premises eventually lead to the conclusion using some rule of inference in logic. However, if you take some premise and that premise contains words that you don't understand, then it's not even clear that that premise is a proposition. So this entire thing is not even it doesn't even belong in the category of arguments, because an argument is fundamentally made up of premises, and these premises are fundamentally made up of propositions. So if the premise itself is not a proposition, then this entire thing is not even an argument. I can give you an example. Like, for example, someone can say, uh, if I eat blah blah blah, then I'll
Soup.
if I eat blah blah blah, then blah 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 is edible. But then you don't know what blah 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 means. So if you don't even know what blah 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 means, you don't. It doesn't seem to follow. The argument does not seem to follow. You could say, yeah, if I eat blah blah blah, then blah 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 is edible. I eat blah blah blah, therefore blah 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 is edible. The conclusion follows only if the premises are propositional, right? So but you don't even understand what blah 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 means, so it's not even clear that this is a proposition. And if it's not a proposition, then it's not even clear that this entire thing is an argument to begin with. So that's why it's important for us to understand the meanings of each of the words. Like we could be charitable with some words that are very colloquially understood, but there are some things which require clarity. Like when someone says it's impossible, in a layman discussion, we are probably exaggerating, or we are talking about some kind of physical, logical, some kind of modality. So when I say it's impossible for me to go to Ahmedabad right now, or something like that, I'm probably saying something like it's physically impossible, or I'm saying it's unlikely that I will go, or something like that. So I'm either exaggerating or I'm talking about some kind of this thing. So it's necessary to understand each of the words that are there. And I understand some basic words, but there are words which are disputable. Like, based on whose definition, I would disagree with the premise or agree with the premise. So if I say something like, it is possible to jump off a cliff and not die, it's possible on a physical modality and a logical modality. But if possible just means likely, then I don't agree with that proposition. If you fall from a cliff, you'll very probably die. So it depends on what the word means for me to assign a truth value to that proposition. So that's why it's important to get clarity on the wishy-washy words before we even grant the argument. Like, if someone walks in with an argument with some vague terms that I don't understand, I can't just sign off on the argument, right? I need to examine it, and this is part of examining it. So yeah, I just wanted to explain that.